everyone. I am Jessamira Falles, a second-year student, a secondary education major in social studies at Negros Oriental State University, Shaton Campus. Today, I'm going to discuss about the historical and sociological perspective and global trends in inclusive education with the subtopic of evolution of special and inclusive education under the subtopics of ancient belief, institutional versus integration, key pioneers, and transition from segregation to an inclusive education. And sociological perspective and global trends in inclusive education. So talking about inclusive education, it is a concept of education that has evolved over centuries rooted in societal belief about individuals with disabilities and special needs. Historically, individuals with disabilities were often marginalized and institutionalized, but over time, a significant shift towards integrating these individuals into mainstream education setting has taken place. This transition from segregation to inclusion has been shaped by a various social, philosophical, and educational forces. Understanding the evolution of a special and inclusive education, along with the contributors of key pioneers, is essential to grasp the current global trends in inclusive education. So first, we're gonna tackle about the evolution of special and inclusive education beliefs. The marginalization of individuals with disabilities. During the ancient societies, individuals with disabilities were often seen through a lens of superstitions, of fear in many cultures. These individuals were marginalized or even abandoned, as there was a little understanding of their needs or potential disabilities were frequently interpreted as punishment or divine retribution, leading to inclusion from a social, educational, and cultural life. And now, we're gonna proceed to the institutionalization versus integration. So, during the 18th and 19th centuries, the approach to individuals with disabilities shifted towards institutionalization. So, institutions were established to house individuals with disabilities, often in a harsh condition, separated from the rest of the society. This was taken that during the period was marked by the belief that ancient individuals with disabilities could not contribute to the societies in meaningful ways, and thus they were isolated in the special institution. Key pioneers in special and inclusive education. So, the pioneers in education leads the groundwork for the movement towards inclusive education. Their work challenged the conventional views and opened in the new possibilities for inclusion of individuals with disabilities in mainstream education. So, the first pioneers of the inclusive education is the first pioneer is Jean-Marc Itard. So, Jean-Marc Itard is a French physician considered one of the first pioneers in special education. He is best known for his work with Victor, the wild boy of Avron, who had been abandoned by a society due to his severe developmental disabilities. Etard's methods, which focus on the rehabilitations of individuals with disabilities through education, laid the foundation for later educational theories and practices aimed at inclusions. The second key pioneers of inclusive education is Edward Sugan. So Sugan is a student of Itard, expanded on his mentor work and developed methods to educate individuals with intellectual disabilities. His approach emphasizes the importance of sensory stimulation, motor activity, and moral education. Sugan's work was influenced in the development of spatial education and advocate for inclusion of individuals with disabilities in mainstream society. Is Maria Montessori. So, Maria Montessori, an Italian physician and educator, is a best known for her innovative approach to education, which emphasizes the importance of individualized learning. Her work with children with disabilities, particularly in the Italy, demonstrated with the potential for inclusive education, so she developed specialized methods and materials that allowed children with disabilities to learn alongside with their peers, in a supportive and nurturing environment. Methods continue to influence and inclusive education practices worldwide. And the last is for the key pioneers of inclusive education is Anne Sullivan. So, Sullivan, an American teacher, he or she renowned for her work with Helen Keller, a young woman who was both blind and deaf. Sullivan developed innovative teaching techniques to communicate with Keller, focusing on the use of sign language and tactile methods. Her work highlighted the potential for individuals with multiple disabilities to succeed in educational setting the stage for inclusive approaches to education. Transition from segregation to inclusive education. This is the third subtopic of historical and sociological perspective and global trends in inclusive education. So, this transition or the transition from segregation to inclusive education can be traced through several key social and legal and educational developments. Social and legal shifts. The 20th century saw significant changes in societal attitudes towards individuals with disabilities. Civil rights movement, particularly in 1960s and 1970s, played a pivotal role in advocating for rights and individuals with disabilities in many countries. Legal frameworks were put in place to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities, ensuring access to education and other social services. The historical evolution of special and inclusive education has been shaped by the key pioneers and societal shifts, from early institutionalization to the modern movement for inclusive education. The understandings of individuals with disabilities has transformed significantly. Today, inclusive education is a global priority, grounded in the beliefs that all students, regardless of their abilities, should have the opportunities to learn together. However, challenges remain and continued advocacy is needed to ensure that all children everywhere have the access to quality and inclusive education.